Welcome to our Sunday Dharma talk. And given the introductory talk today is Gary Belanger. He's an electrical engineer, and he's been coming to the Zen Center since 9/11. He's married, does technical support at his job, and is starting to pick up duties as a data scientist now. And so answering questions today is Zen Master Soeng Hyang. And she is the School Zen Master of the Kwan School of Zen. She received Dharma transmission from Zen Master Seung Sahn on October 10, 1992. She is one of Zen Master Seung Sahn's first students and studied with him beginning in 1972. She was given inka in 1977. She's a registered nurse and since 1969. And she currently works in hospice care. Well, you're not working in hospice. This is on the Quantum School of Zen thing. And so she's retired now, and it's out in California doing a lot of the stuff with the school, with international school, and still traveling and all of that stuff. But she's retired from her nursing career, so that's how that is. And so she's going to answer questions. I hope we have some good questions. Any kind of question is good. Thank you.
Hello and good morning. Whenever I do a Dharma talk, I usually bring a prop of some sort. These are the 3 jewels. It turns out I printed out the wrong Dharma talk, so we won't need that. That Dharma talk would have been about a period during a couple of years where I left the Zen Center and then came back. And the reason I came back was because of that guy right there, Sangha. So it's Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and this is always hanging in my house, very visible. And while I was away, I'm like, I can get Buddha anywhere, and I can even get Dharma anywhere, but I can't get Sangha anywhere. So anyway, so the talk I actually want to do, actually that's the talk I want to do, but the talk I will do has to do with a decision on a Dharma talk from a few months ago. Right after Christmas, I did a Dharma talk, and I said I was going to either talk about losing my job to artificial intelligence or the best Christmas present that I never got. And it was right around Christmas, so I did the present that I never got. So now I'm going to do the Dharma talk about artificial intelligence, like you haven't heard enough about AI. I still have a job, which is awesome. But I will more than likely either be losing it or it will get turned into something else over time. And it's actually quite interesting, and I'll kind of talk about that as I go along. The title of my Dharma talk is Your Neural Network Hallucinating? All right, so that's kind of the underlining theme. I've always been really interested in how our minds behave, just the thing when you're sitting alone, how the brain actually operates. Why does it do this? Why does it do that? From a young age, in fact. I went to Catholic school. And in Catholic school, they teach you how to pray. And every time I tried to pray, I would follow their directions, I would try to pray, and I would listen for a response. And I would go to the nun the next day saying, I didn't get a response. I was talking to God, but he's not listening to me. There's nobody talking back. The only thing I hear is the normal voice that I hear in my head, 24 hours a day. So that kind of started getting me interested in the brain and how our brain works. Because there was other students, this is like 2nd grade, 3rd grade Catholic school, where they'll, I talked to God last night. And damn, he must have been busy talking to you because he didn't say, anything to me. So I started noticing that, I just started noticing my brain, how my brain operates, how my thoughts would come and go, how I would get distracted, and so forth, so on and so forth. And I started just starting to test myself in terms of my brain. One of the classic ones that I always mention is food that I didn't like. As a kid, I didn't like food at all, but other people like food. And I'm like, well, their tongue must be different than my tongue. And then I'm like, well, what else could be different? Well, maybe they just brain operates differently. Maybe the sensation from their tongue is interpreted by their head, their neural network, differently. So I started experimenting with things, and the one I experimented with was I started eating the food that I didn't like. I absolutely hated bananas. So I started eating bananas. And a very short time after that, you're like, wow, I kind of like bananas now. And I tried that with a whole bunch of things, like little things, just seeing, gee, there's just something in your head that divides is there something in your mind that's like kind of dualistic, where it's like, nah, I don't like that, but like this over here, and that's good over there, but that's bad over there, and it's in there somewhere, but I just never really understood why it went on and what is doing it, like what section of the brain is it, over here or over there, or whatever. So I just started getting super interested in it for my whole life. And when I was in graduate school in like the 1984 to 1985, I was going for my master's degree in electrical engineering. There was a class that you could take as an elective called neural networks. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's going to be awesome. Well, that's when neural networks first started. So there was literally absolutely nothing known about it. They were totally primitive as compared to what they are now. And a neural network is basically how they think our brain operates, with neurons, with connections between neurons, weighted connections between neurons, where the weights get adjusted depending on if you like it or if you don't like it, if you're thinking about it a lot or if you don't think about it that much, and so forth. And like I said, we took a class. I took a class on it, and it was a whole semester-long class. And it was also one of the things that was almost my most embarrassing thing that I ever did. Almost. And it was, the professor walked into the class, and he stood up there and said, "Gee, as..." And I thought he was giving us some sort of neural network demonstration, and I almost laughed, thinking it was appropriate. It turns out he had a stutter. He had a really, really bad stutter. He was trying to say, as Custer must have said, gee, look at all the Indians, because it was a pack. But I still think about that today as something that I'm embarrassed by, just because I almost laughed, but I'm totally embarrassed. I would have totally been a life-changing embarrassed if I would have inappropriately laughed. But like I said, I kind of think about that. So during this class, we learned basically the very, very primitive aspects of how a neural network works. Not from a biological standpoint, but from an engineering standpoint. It's, a neuron, and it has inputs to a neuron, it has outputs to a neuron, and you can do certain things with it. And it was really super primitive at the time.
What's a synapses? Is that part of?
Just a connection. Yeah, so you got a neuron, and by the way, I'm not a medical or biological. There's connections that go from one neuron to another, and those are the synapses. And they have things called activation functions. In other words, something has to go above a certain level for that to trigger. If it's below that, it doesn't trigger, and blah, 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 blah. And there's all kinds of back propagation and gradient descents and a whole bunch of math. But the whole thing is that the way it's connected, the way it's a neural network is it's a whole bunch of input nodes. There's some output nodes, and the output nodes connect to what you want happening. So in the case that we did for school was, we had we were going to design a neural network that took written numbers from 0 to 9, just one number, from 0 to 9, as the input, and on the output, it was just going to have LEDs. It was going to have 10 LEDs. Whichever number that it looked at, it should have lit that LED up. And when you do neural networks, you have to train it, or at least most types. You have to train it. Does it sound familiar? Like we have to train the brain? And what we trained it on was this character set called the MSIT character set. They took data from licenses, they took data from surveys, they took data from the consensus and stuff. So they had a ton of data of what a 0 looks like, how everyone wrote a 0. A bunch of different people write zeros different, how people write a 1, how people write a 4, and so forth. And our job was to figure out how to program or set up this neural network to be able to recognize a 0 or a 1 or a 9. And it was interesting because they all didn't look perfect. Some people have left-handed, so that it has a tilt to the right. If you're right-handed, it tilts to the left, or actually vice versa. When you write the number in the box, it could be up, or it could be down, it could be sideways, it could be on a diagonal. A 4 could be a closed top 4, or it could be the open top 4, and so forth. So we spent all semester programming this thing, and it got really, really good. And the whole thing was learning, how it learned, how it set up the connections between the neurons, how did it do the weighting such that it recognized all this. And it turns out it worked actually pretty well, but then we started getting surprised where we would take the 4 and we turn it completely on its side. Nobody wrote a 4 on its side. It's got a 4, now it's on its side, or it's upside down. And it still recognized it as a 4. And it turns out that's the same thing as this modern day. They know how a neural network, they know that a neural network works, but they don't know exactly how. At least from my understanding. I'm still doing it. I'm still interested in it. I might lose my job because of it. But they don't have the math yet that explains all of what's going on. But they know it works. Well, to make a long story short, that neural network technology has cycled over the years. In the 80s, it was, it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Then in the 90s, well, it's a little better, but not quite there yet. In the 2000s, so forth. Well, it finally got there now. So everyone's heard of ChatGPT. And ChatGPT uses a large language model to get, what it does, ChatGPT starts with this large language model, but all that means is it scoured the internet for 170 billion pieces of information to train itself, to train its neural network, so that you could ask it questions in English. You could say, write me a story. You could say, in that story, I want it to rhyme. In that story, I want the characters to be Asian, and blah, blah, blah. And it'll generate a story based upon the stuff that it learned, which, by the way, wasn't cheap. ChatGPT, that large language model, cost them like something $2 million in electricity alone to run the computers, to learn, and so forth. So that's kind of where we are now. So ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence agent based on neural networks that we're all starting to use now. You can get on and type help and stuff. Well, my job now, I work in tech support, and my job normally is if a customer asks a question, they'll create an email, to create a ticket via email. I go through my manuals and our examples and our tutorials, and I'll Google it, and I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do the other thing, and I'll give them an answer. In other words, I'm doing a bunch of searches. I'm searching in our document, I'm searching on our online tech tips and app notes, I'm searching the internet. Our product is based on a standard. I'll go and search the stuff on the standard, and we'll piece together a response to give to the customer. And that usually takes, somewhere between an hour and a couple of days, depending on how many other things I'm working on, depending on how complex it is. Well, now you can ask ChatGPT, and it does it in a second or 5 seconds. So we're in the process of, it started off, we were experimenting. The owner was very interested in ChatGPT when it came out in artificial intelligence. He says, how can we use it? And somebody said, hey, let's use it for tech support. And we decided to try it. We pointed it to all of our manuals and all of our documentations and spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. And we sat down and fired it all up and said, what's the message size max for a UDP4 interface on a Macintosh? Answer. And we're all going, oh shit. It turned us into dinosaurs overnight. So how do I feel about that? Well, I feel great about that. Because the bottom line is, it will help our customers. They'll get better answers. They'll get them faster. The company will save a lot of money, take 10 people out of support that make decent money. And it's something that doesn't go on vacation. It doesn't get a call in sick. It's available 24/7. And I already mentioned it, but the bottom line is it helps our customers. So how can that be bad? Now, granted, I might have to find another job or a new career and stuff like that, but that help. You know, it's going to help our customers. We haven't rolled it out yet. That's like in 2 weeks. I'm hoping nobody. But anyway, and part of the reason that I mention this is that it's kind of my dream job. This job came, it would be a whole talk on itself on how I got this job and how just absolutely awesome it is. I call it my karma job. But it's the way it is. Now, why am I talking about all of this stuff? Well, it turns out if you model a computer algorithm on how the human brain works, guess what? Now it's starting to have human brains type tendencies. So we're starting to see things like, and by the way, I'm also taking a class on it, University of Michigan class on neural networks. I figured, what the hell? I'm just going to lose my job. I might as well find another one involved with it, and so on and so forth. So they're starting to see these large language models and these neural networks. They're starting to see them to start to behave not like humans, but certain human tendencies. In fact, there's things called a hallucination, which is why I titled my thing, Is Your Neural Network Hallucinating? And it turns out it's a real thing. If you ask it a question and it comes back with nonsensical information, they call that, a hallucination, just to make it a little humorous. It had all of the data that it needed, but it just didn't put the pieces together, and it just gave you a nonsensical answer. Another thing that's happening is that, as I mentioned, that first ChatGPT, it scoured the internet for information. 1.7 billion pieces of information. Well, that's great. All of those pieces of information were more than likely generated by mostly humans. But now what's happening is, as people use these artificial neural networks and artificial intelligence, they're taking the information that the AI agent gave, that's going back on the internet. So now as other agents start training, they're not training just with material that was generated by humans, they're getting trained on stuff that was generated by other AI bots. So it's starting to dilute and pollute the data set. And some of it is actually done intentionally bad. There are people and organizations out there flooding the internet with misinformation that the artificial intelligence agents learn from now. They don't know if it's bogus or not. They have to assume it's true. So it's starting to get incorrect information, and it's also starting to get a bias. So as the neural network learns things and things become popular, it starts saying, well, those are popular, those must be more relevant. So it's starting to get a bias towards those things. So it's trying to learn more about the popular things and less about the less popular things. So it's actually becoming biased. Much like our brains, which is kind of how I wanted to tie it all back to what we do here on the cushion. We all have neural networks up here in our head. They all learn. They learn by the good things. They learn by the bad things. Our memories are brought on by how much we think about things versus how much we don't think about things. If you think about something for a lot, for example, all you're doing is you're increasing the weights that are involved on how your neurons are connected in your head. I kind of came up with an expression years ago that I kind of live by, and it's that you can't forget things that you think about. If you've got something traumatic in your life and you keep thinking about it, well, then you're going to be more apt to think about it. You just, by the virtue of the fact that you're thinking about it, you increase the weights of the neuron, the connection between the neurons, so that it's a little stronger, so that it gets put into long-term memory versus short-term memory. So the problem that we're going to have is that as these artificial intelligence agents get more and more like the human brain, we're going to start seeing problems with artificial intelligence that we would typically think with people. When I give I'm a Dharma teacher here, so one of my responsibilities is I give meditation instructions. And we have a kind of a list of things that we're supposed to talk about and not talk about. I think I'm going way over, so I'll wrap it up real quick. So as we give meditation instruction, we go through the forms and all that stuff. But I also kind of mention the fact that, I kind of go off script and say, listen, as part of this, the metaphysical aspects of it too is you're consciously, when you bring yourself back, you are consciously forming connections or strengthening connections or even weakening certain connections in your brain so that you'll be more apt to return to the moment when you recognize things. And I just want to kind of end.
Maybe they could program that to notice the bias.
More than likely. More than likely. In fact, that's kind of how they're going to, there's mechanisms and things underway to be able to try to spot AI-generated material so that it was AI-generated versus it wasn't. So they're trying to figure that all out. But I want to end with a saying from my good buddy Doug Walsh, who will be here on Wednesday for consulting interviews for anyone that's interested. I talked to him about stuff like this, the mind and stuff, and he said something that really kind of stuck in my mind was that he says if you close your eyes and picture where does your consciousness start in your brain? In other words, does it start over in this lobe over here, or does it start over there, or does it feel like it's the whole thing, or does it feel like it's outside of the actual gray matter of your head? So that was his kung on to me. Where does your consciousness begin? And I probably said a lot more than I didn't want to say, and not enough on the things I did want to say. But
A lot of time if you want to say. Did you miss something you wanted to say?
no, I think I mean, I'll sit here and talk all day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops.
Are there any questions?
So, I found your talk very interesting. So, as a lot of people here know, my older brother died on February 10th, and his partner asked me to write the obituary. And I didn't know where to begin. And so, I Googled, how to write an obituary. And it came up with going to legacy.com, which I've heard about. That's where a lot of obituaries are. My son's is there as well. And so I went on that, and it just asked me all these questions, and I answered all the questions. And then I generated an obituary. And I was like, and then I read it, and it was excellent. Way better than I could have written. And I said, oh, I'm using this. And I can't tell you how many comments I got, how a wonderful obituary. Should I tell people? Because I didn't write it, and it was wonderful. And, and so when you were talking about, I've never experienced or tried to or had anything to do or even thought about, anything with AI, and I didn't even go on there to do it, and it just happened. Mm-hmm. But, so it's really not a question there, but I mean, it's just, even when we are not looking for it now, it's going to appear. So, and I also like what you were saying about, I always think of it as a training to bring my mind back. That I have to train myself, and after so many years, then it's just automatic. But I never really thought about how that happens. So thank you. And sorry for no question, Bobby.
Does anybody have a question?
I do.
Yes.
So my question is related to having thoughts. I found your talk very interesting and scary, to be honest. So it was this week I had two contradictory thoughts. Like it was the end of the day, and I thought I'm not going to read my email, because if I read my email, then my work email, then I may find something that is going to upset me, and therefore I'm not going to be able to sleep. So I had this clear thought in my mind of not doing that. And what do? Without any resistance, I open my email, get my phone, open my email. So my question is, what is that? And where is our free will? What is my free will in that? When I clearly had that thought in my mind of saying, no, I'm not going to do it. I have reasons to not do this. And I did it. Thank you.
So one of the things that we often talk about is to believe in yourself. But it's not small self, it's big self. So that's where the question comes up, what am I? What is it that's thinking? What is this? So I have a really good I'm going to really abbreviate it and paraphrase it, but there's a story about this monk that he started out as a very young boy, and maybe 12, or he was living in the monastery. He was an orphan that was adopted by the monastery. So he was very, very bright and cheerful and helpful, and he took to things right away. And he started reading about the sutras, and he'd go to all the Dharma talks, and everything was absorbing. He was very, very intelligent. So everybody noticed that about him, and gave him a lot of praise. And he kind of ran out of it's kind of like he had a high-class computer. So the information in the sutras were repetitive, some of it, and it wasn't so interesting to him anymore. So then he realized, I've got to understand myself, because he read about Zen, he read about the Buddha's path, and so he decided to practice Zen. And now he's only 18 or 19. So he finished all the sutras, did really well, and decided to practice Zen. And he wanted to be by himself. He wanted to do solo retreats. So he found a nice space. They provided him with someone to deliver food to him, water, and he meditated in the mountains by himself for several years. And he was getting quite a reputation, because first of all, he'd finished, he could give any lecture on any sutra any time. And then he was becoming this, very adapted to being super clear with Zen. Because people who would drop off the food or would notice that he was kind of glowing and present, very, very present. So he's only at this point still in his 20s, and the national teacher, let's say it's China, this is just a story, but died. The national teacher passed away, and even though he was so young, they wanted him to become the national teacher. So he said, oh no, that's not what I want to do, and he just wanted to stay there and meditate. And so then, a couple of years or whatever went by, and they asked him again, please be our national teacher. So he said no again. And then finally, they asked him a third time, and because it's tradition, and that someone asks you 3 times, well, maybe you should say yes. So he agreed to do this, and he became the national teacher. It's like being a pope. So he had all these beautiful robes and attendants, and many, many opportunities to present his Dharma. And he was flawless. He worked really hard, and gave himself very generously to everybody. And everything was great. Maybe it was a little too great, though. You know, everything was super great. Great food, great clothes, great admiration, everything you could possibly want. I think he kept his precepts. He was a monk, so he didn't have any confusion with that, with women or anything like that. He's a perfect person, really, like the perfect person. And so, the perfect AI. So one day he was giving a Dharma talk, and people are just enthralled, you know, looking at him like just, wow, isn't he amazing? And really good stuff coming out of him. And he had this thought, wow, I've really arrived. I have arrived. This little thought came into his head. And you never would know from the outside, because his talk continued. He was doing great with the talk that he was giving. But that ego appeared. And as soon as he had that thought about, wow, I've really arrived, he got a big itch in his leg, a big sting in his thigh. And he just kept talking and finished up. And, you know, when he came back to his room, he had a big round rash on his right thigh. It was really angry looking, you know, just itchy, and it was very hard to ignore. But he tried to ignore it because it was inconvenient. And he went to bed that night so uncomfortable, thinking, oh, I shouldn't, you know, call the doctor because I'm young, I'm healthy, this isn't right. So it'll cure itself. And all the next day it was bothering him. And that night he went to bed, and this rash on his leg started to talk. And he looked at it, it had a mouth. This rash, I was like, totally didn't compute, you know? So, and what the mouth is saying is all of these horrible things about him. You know, like anything egocentric, it would bring it up. And things that he kind of knew and he had been working on and letting go of and blah, 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 cleaning his slate. But this mouth knew all about him. And he just he wrapped it with a bunch of gauze so that you couldn't hear the mouth so he could function the next day. Now it was getting embarrassing. I mean, who has a mouth on their thigh, you know? So then that night, it was still talking. He took off the gauze and it had all negative stuff. And it had developed a nose and eyes. And it had the full face. And it was really an angry face, just shouting at him. So he had to call the surgeon. And he had his doctor come in, and he was really embarrassed. And, you know, like again, ego, I'm embarrassed. And he said, I got to show you this. It's going to be a problem here. So, I mean, he's the only person in the world that ever developed a face on his legs. So the surgeon just said, oh, no problem. And he excised it. You know, he put a skin graft over it. And the Zen Master was so relieved, and went to bed that night, and boom, it just reappeared. You know, just reappeared, just as angry as ever. So this monk, I forgot to tell you, like when he was little, he was such a good boy, and he was always helping people. He was he would just do anything for anybody. So one time, this old dirty monk showed up, dirty, smelly, needy monk, and he often would show up at the temple. And so people said, oh, you take care of him, because they knew the boy would do anything for anybody. So the little boy took very good care of him for the week or so that he stayed. And when he was walking the monk back out to the gate to leave, the monk said to him, you know, I have special powers, so if you're ever in any kind of trouble or ever need anything, I could help you anytime, any place. So just let me know. And of course, this boy is already so smart. He goes, oh, that's just a bunch of hooey. And he said, oh, thanks very much. And he just left, you know, he left. So when this thing happened with the face, he went, maybe that monk can help me. You know, he was desperate. He was so desperate. So as soon as he had that thought, maybe he can help me, the monk shows up and says, you know, he's just magic. It was magic. And so he shows up. He says, how may I help you? And he showed him the face. He goes, oh, no problem. He said, I'll draw you a map, and you go to this certain river on this certain mountain ridge, and use the water from the certain river and pour it over it and it'll disappear. It's a 3-day journey. So he told everybody, I'm going to go on a 6-day trek and I'll be back and I need to be alone. And so he brought his little cup for the water and a little bit of food and he made it to the river. And the whole time he's walking to this river, it's like the mouth would not stop. And it was getting deeper into all of his bad karma and blah, blah, blah. And so just as he was about to he found the river, just as he was pour the water over the face, the face said, wait a minute, stop it. And so he put the cup down and looked at the face. For the first time, he really made eye contact with the face. And the face told him some past life karma that they had together. It was just a typical story of he had stole his wife. He had ruined this face's life by taking away his wife and having an affair and blah, blah, blah. And when the face was telling him who he was and why he was here, he realized, he goes, that's the truth. He said, I did do that. He remembered, and he remembered this person now because he finally paid attention to it, really listened to it. Before that, he was just trying to ignore it the whole time. So he looked at the face and he said, I am so sorry. And it was a deep, meaningful, genuine apology. And then the face just phased out. It was gone. He never had to pour the water over it. So the point is, there's a few points in this story that I just want to make, and it reminds me of what you were saying, because you can make the best computer ever. You could just have a lot of wisdom, a lot of Dharma. But have you finished? No. It's always, how is it just now? Always, that's our job. How is it just now? So we try to meditate. And, I've been up at Kiltree for now, for a little over a week, trying to just be there. And then I get a new name for it. I'm calling it junk mail. It's junk. I mean, really junk. Like, I'll just start going off on, if I went to the kitchen, I'll help. It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like what you were saying. Just like this misinformation. Your program's not working. It's not even something I'm attached to. It's just junk. It's just amazing. And I go, and I'll just kind of really get that it's junk mail. It's stuff that you don't need. You don't have to remember it. It's nothing you need to remember because it's just non-important. So I've just been spending this last 8-9 days just junk mail. Just like the more that you label it as junk, it's you have these automatic spam. It'll start to go into spam with you without you even having to look at it, But I really loved your talk, by the way. Thank you. Because it's about reprogramming and letting go of what's not true, what's not true. And we because we have this small self, we're trying to defend it. We think there's something to defend and there's something to, and they hurt me. I think of the things that I really remember as a child, they're mostly negative. Like, my mother said that, and it's like, and that's what stays, that long-term memory, the stuff that affected you, and you never worked it out. So the face on the leg, he finally worked it out. He hadn't in his past life. You don't have to believe in past lives, but it makes sense. There's layers and layers of existence. We can't begin. I'd like to see AI figure that out. Like the Buddha said, if you try to think of those things like, are there other realms of existence? Was I here before? Will I have a future after I die? Don't know. But just go back. There's nothing wrong with the questions, but value them to the point where you can't cognate it intellectually. So just go back to don't know. Whether it appears and you have more wisdom, you probably will slowly have more wisdom because you've let go of the junk mail. If we weren't having that junk mail, we'd have so much more space in the brain. So where does it start? Where does it end? It's certainly not, there's a joke about this person was crawling around on the floor I can't find my head. I can't find my head, you know, because he couldn't see his head. We can't see our head, you know. And it's like, well, I can't find the true meaning of existence. Well, why don't we just wake up and, you know, we already know the true meaning of existence if we just sit and listen for a while, you know. And the beautiful thing about practice, and it's not just Buddhism, it's Christians and Muslims and Islam, and all these wonderful things where they encourage you to let go of self. You know, that they start preaching love. They're preaching forgiveness. They're preaching, how may I help? All of them are. You know, like to listen, what's needed. So there's no negative programming in don't know. There's only wisdom and love. And that's the thing that certainly sometimes people ask me, oh, 1972 and you're still here? You know, like, how come you stayed all this time? Well, because it's like you keep accessing this, you trust it. You trust that this is helping your life. Why would you walk away from that? And why wouldn't you want to help someone else understand it? You know, why not? You find that altruistic thought of, oh, I want someone else to try to get this. So nice people like Gary, he's been a member forever, you know, and he's always been helping. You know, it's like, that serves you well, right? It's not like, thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean it. Are there any other questions? Come on. Is anybody running into a little glitch with their practice? Any questions about how do you? Oh, Dennis. Oh, God. He has more wisdom than I do.
So Gary talks a lot about neural network, and he had that question, you know, where is the neural network, the mind, where does it stop? So I've had this experience more than once. Somebody asked me my Dharma name, which is Shim Hang, which means mind action. And oftentimes when I'm talking to people from Asia, they go, oh, mind action, just like that. And sometimes we say, you know, these koan questions or our practice, we need to listen down here. So I've always been, well, I'm just curious what your take on that, where this mind resides, or does it reside? Where does the mind reside, or does it reside, or anything like that?
Sitting here listening to your question.
Sorry?
Where does my mind reside? Sitting here listening to your question. Right? Yeah. But yeah, if I listen to him clearly, then I see his point, you know, right? And this whole thing about the heart, I think in the Chinese character is the same for mind and heart. For brain, you know, and heart, it's the same character. So this heart this is the eye center. Like if I say, who likes ice cream? I like ice cream. We have that sense that because our pump here is keeping us alive. This pump is flushing the oxygen to us. So it's a very important part of our body. But what about this? This is our shit center, you know? This is what's actually digesting, giving us energy. So we need the oxygen, we need the calories. So it's all connected. It's all connected. But when, you know, in the army, they'll, you know, or anything, any sports, and where's your guts? You know, even when you say gut, you feel it. Ugh. You feel it down here. You try to balance on a balance beam. You're going to feel your center of gravity right at your gut. So this center of gravity is something we have to feel that. We have to see that, you know, this is where our energy really is coming from. And if we can take the mind, heart chakras, this thing, and bring it down here like, ugh. Because we're human beings, you know, we need courage. We need courage. It's a frightening world. You know, we're born, how did we get here? But we're here. We're here, and just as Gary said, this AI, now it's hallucinating, it's capable of getting confused, it's also biased, it can be biased. Well, talk about biased, our cerebral cortex just does this weird I, my, me thing, and then it spreads into your tribe, and then your tribe wants more, and it's going to take it from this tribe, and because doesn't trust isn't enough. But if the tribe, each of us finds we do have enough, that we begin to feel the gratitude, the wisdom, the compassion from our gut, like, whoa, then we're not going to try to take from someone else. We'll probably feel more like giving to someone else. Hey, do you need anything? That's what feels better. Give me that. Or, hey, do you need anything? There's a completely different energy in those two gestures, And which one feels better? Obviously. So all of this, give me what you got, is all from fear, not ignorance, anger. And as Buddhism is really, when I started reading about it, I was so impressed with just like boiling it down to desire, anger, and ignorance. Like, that's just something that humans have a lot more of than other animals, because we have such a complicated computer. So that's okay, but then we need to see how to bring it down to our gut so that it can really feel and hum and be with, and let all of that extra thinking slowly dissolve. So anything that is essential, you won't forget, believe me. It's just, don't worry. I used to worry, like when I heard about, what if you meditate and then you lose the self, but then you have an existential crisis, you don't know what's going on, and there's no grounding there or whatever. But it's the opposite happens. You be with and pay attention. And there's no need for a small ego. There's only a need for attentiveness, and you can access your compassion from that place. And you don't grab at it, it comes up, it floats up. There's no work involved, except throwing at the junk mail, And that's not easy. That's why I was asking, are there any questions? Like, some of you are maybe beginners, and is this really hard? Is it hard to be a member of the Zen Center? Is it hard to do a retreat? I don't know, when I sit on the cushion, I think I'm going to go crazy. And, it's really hard, And you just need technique. You need certain tools that can help you get through that 25, 30-minute practice, and see how you feel after. See how does that feel? Oh, you didn't lose anything. You probably feel better. So it's just, you've got to... We say, my teacher used to, always said, try, 10,000 years nonstop. And that's a very important point. How do you get yourself back in the ring, back in the ring, back in the ring? Because there is a real gravity force to just desire, anger, and ignorance. It just pulls at you, It's easier. But you've got to find that place where you do wonder about your consciousness and what's controlling what, and what is this? Where does it come from? Where does this thinking come from? Then we teach don't know. Just don't know. Be with. So there's no junk mail. There's just be with. And if you're not ready for that, then my teacher, again, used to always say, well, more suffering is necessary. And not really, he didn't say that sarcastically. I would say, so-and-so was coming for 2 years, and now they're not coming anymore. I don't know. How come they don't come anymore? You go, oh, more suffering is necessary. In other words, the confusion's it draws you. You want to go to the carnival. You want to do this and that, So go back to the carnival and see until you get saturated, and maybe you come back. So. No questions? Okay, time. Thank you.
I have a couple of announcements. Thank you for your Dharma talks. I'm going to look at it later online. So We have, as you might know, we have the Kilche up at the monastery, and Zen Master Soeng Hyang is doing this week and next week. If you want to join, you have to join for at least a week, and experienced people should be the ones that would want to join, but we still have 2 weeks. And then on the Buddha's birthday is on the 6th, and so on that's a Saturday, and at 10 a.m. we're going to have Buddha's ceremony, Buddha's birthday ceremony, and that's like talks and stuff about the Buddha. And then at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a precept ceremony. So people come here and they'll take precepts, 5 precepts, 10 precepts. And then on Sunday, I believe we're going to kind of have an outside work program with So Young is going to kind of lead that. We'll be doing different stuff out in the garden. Hopefully the weather's going to be okay. And then April 13th, we're going to have a one-day retreat with Zen Master Tang Gong, and that's going to be in person from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And Sunday, May 5th, starting Sunday, May 5th, we're going to have a children's class, and it's going to be led by Lisa, and I guess there's another fellow here that has, with 3 kids that you're going to do? Oh, he left, okay, with his son, yeah. And so they're going to be running it, and what's going to happen is that we don't have the pamphlets now, but later we're going to have the pamphlets out on the table, and it's going to have their contact information so that you can contact them and talk about registration forms and that kind of thing. And then every other, and that's going to be every other week.
It's going to be on the first and third Sundays during practice, and Danielle will be part of that as well.
And is that going to go like through the summer, or is
We're
it how?
going to do May and June, we'll have the summer off, and then it'll run parallel to the school year, so it'll be a September through June.
Okay.
activity. We're trying to do a family retreat also at some point over the summer, maybe in August.
All right, good, sounds good. And now, also you guys do a Sunday yoga group from 8 to 8:50, and that's every other Sunday?
That's every Sunday, we're going to do a cart kilche, so it's been every other Sunday, but it'll be going back to every Sunday.
Okay, good. And then we have the Wednesday evening, we have the public dinner and meditation orientation, chanting and stuff like that. Difference between Wednesday and Sunday is on Wednesday we do chanting. So if you want to get into chanting, which is, I think, a really good practice, then appear on Wednesday. Plus we have a dinner and chatting and stuff like that. And so donations are always gratefully accepted. If you can put money in the box here, or you can do I guess there's a QR code at the entrance, and you can use the website to donate. That would always be helpful. We have a volunteer program, and so there's a form out there in which you can sign up, and if you have some kind of talent or stuff like that, you can sign up for that. If you just want to help out with cleaning and sweeping up and helping with the dinner and those kinds of things, you can do that. There's no skill for that. And then...
Cooking is definitely
Well, I didn't cook before I came here, but now I cook. So yeah, I had to learn. It's a big thing to cook for 20 people, you know. Anyways, finally, membership is another way to help support the Zen Center. So if you want to do that, you can do it by way of membership. And Carol, what are you saying?
The gift shop.
The gift shop. And the gift shop's going to be open Sunday, today. And in fact, in a few moments. And as soon as she gets there. And also, we're going to have snacks out there, so I hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Providence Zen Center live stream. We're live most Sundays at 10:45 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you want to join our Zoom meeting, find the link on our website at providencezen.org. Or catch the live stream on YouTube and Facebook. Next week, Zen Master Soeng Hyang returns. The School Zen Master of the Kwan School of Zen. She was one of Zen Master Seung Sahn's first American students. She began studying with him in 1972 and received inka in 77 and Dharma transmission in 1992. She was a registered nurse since 1969 and helped found the Providence Zen Center. Lived here for 17 years. Right now she's in California. She has a daughter and lives with her partner, Mary. Well, that's all for today. We'll be back again soon. From all of us here at Providence Zen Center, have a pleasant Sunday.
It's too far forward, is that the problem? Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right.